Welcome to part two of the Ancient Civilizations Iceberg, where we explore civilizations and societies, from the well known to the extremely obscure, from how they rose to how they fell. Just a quick reminder that you can start anywhere in this series. Also, remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video if you enjoy it. The Gauls, as they are commonly known, were a group of Celtic tribes that inhabited a region of Western Europe, then known as Gaul. This area encompassed present-day France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and parts of Switzerland, the Netherlands, Germany, and northern Italy. The roots of Gallic civilization can be traced back to the first millennium BC, during which the Latien culture flourished across Gaul. This culture, known for its intricate metalwork and complex social structures, emerged around the 5th century BC and played a pivotal role in shaping the identity of the Gallic tribes. The Gauls were a warrior society, with their communities organized into numerous tribes, each led by a chieftain. These tribes were known for their fortified settlements, which served as both defensive strongholds and centers of trade and governance. The government structure of the Gallic civilization was highly decentralized, as with many tribal societies. Power was distributed among various independent tribes, rather than being unified under a single central authority. Each tribe was led by a chieftain or king who held both military and judicial power. These leaders were often chosen from among the noble class and were supported by a council of elders or warriors. The Gallic tribes were never unified under a single ruler or government. Instead, they operated as independent entities, occasionally forming coalitions or alliances for mutual defense or during major military campaigns. These alliances, however, were temporary and lacked the stability of a unified state. Their deep internal divisions and lack of permanent unified governance would ultimately contribute to their downfall and subjugation by the Roman state. Religion played a central role in Gallic society, with the Druids acting as religious leaders, judges, and scholars. The Gallic pantheon was rich with deities, many of whom were later syncretized with Roman gods after the Roman conquest. This cultural amalgamation would give rise to what is known as Gallo-Roman culture, a blend of Gallic and Roman traditions that persisted even after the fall of the Roman Empire. The decline of Gallic independence began with the expansion of the Roman Republic. The Gauls first came into significant conflict with Rome during the 4th century BC, most notably when a Gallic army led by Brennus sacked Rome in 390 BC. This event marked one of the few times in history that the city of Rome was captured by a foreign force, leaving a lasting impression on Roman memory and policy. To put it in perspective, the next time the city of Rome itself would be occupied by invaders was by the Visigoths, almost 800 years later. The turning point for the Gauls and Gallic civilization came during the Gallic Wars, which ran from 58 BC to 50 BC. This conquest was famously led by Julius Caesar. These campaigns were a series of brutal military engagements in which the Roman legions systematically subdued the Gallic tribes. The most famous of these was the Battle of Alesia in 52 BC, where the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix was defeated and captured, effectively ending organized resistance to Roman rule. Following this victory, Gaul was fully integrated into the Roman Republic as a province. After being conquered, Gaul remained a vital part of the Roman state for centuries. The Romanization of Gaul led to significant cultural changes. Over time, the Gallic language and many aspects of traditional Gallic culture were supplanted by Roman customs, Latin language, and Roman law. By the time of the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD, the distinct Gallic identity had largely faded, replaced by a Gallo-Roman culture. The final blow to any remaining Gallic independence came with the invasion of the Franks, a Germanic tribe that established the Merovingian kingdom. This marked the definitive end of the Gallic civilization as a distinct cultural and political entity, and the region transitioned into the early medieval period dominated by Frankish rule. However, the Frankish elites largely assimilated to the Gallo-Roman culture they found, and the mixture of these unique cultures would give rise to the French identity in time. Notably, while the Bretons have held by their unique Celtic culture within France for decades, as their name may indicate, they arrived in the region from Britain, fleeing the Anglo-Saxon invasion. The Babylonians. The Babylonian civilization, rooted in ancient Mesopotamia, was one of the earliest well-documented civilizations to emerge. Its legacy spans from the early 2nd millennium BC to its final decline in the 1st millennium BC, leaving behind a series of innovations in law, architecture, science, and culture. Babylonia emerged as a distinct entity around 1894 BC, during the reign of the Amorite chieftain Sumu Abum, who is traditionally considered the founder of Babylon as an independent state. Babylon was initially a small, relatively insignificant city-state in the vast and complex landscape of Mesopotamia, overshadowed by more powerful neighbors like Assyria. The rise of the Babylonian Empire is closely associated with Hammurabi, who ascended the throne in 1792 BC. Hammurabi's reign marked the consolidation of power in the region as he expanded Babylon's influence through a series of military campaigns and strategic alliances. By the end of his reign, Hammurabi had transformed Babylon from a small city-state into a powerful empire that dominated Mesopotamia. One of Hammurabi's most enduring legacies is the Code of Hammurabi, a comprehensive set of laws that provided the framework for justice in his empire. This legal code, inscribed on a stele for everyone to see, covered various aspects of daily life, including trade, marriage, and property rights. It is one of the earliest examples of written law in human history, and is perhaps the first time a ruler established that laws that exist should be knowable. Despite Hammurabi's successes, the empire he built was short-lived. Following his death, the empire gradually weakened under the rule of his successors, eventually falling to external pressures. In 1595 BC, the Hittites sacked Babylon, leading to a period of instability and the rise of various different peoples who would rule Babylon for centuries. After nearly a millennium of foreign domination and chaos, Babylon regained its independence and power in the late 7th century BC with the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. This period is often regarded as a renaissance of Babylonian culture. The most famous ruler of this period was Nebuchadnezzar II, who reigned from 605 to 562 BC. Nebuchadnezzar is best known for his military conquests, including the capture of Jerusalem in 587 BC, which led to the Babylonian captivity of the Jewish people. He also embarked on ambitious construction projects, including the expansion of the city of Babylon and the construction of the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. However, it should be noted that the existence of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon is highly controversial amongst historians. The Neo-Babylonian Empire's prominence was short-lived, much like the Old Babylonian Empire. The last king of Babylon, Nabonidus, faced internal strife and religious conflict, which weakened the empire. In 539 BC, the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, marking the end of the Neo-Babylonian Empire and the beginning of Persian rule over Mesopotamia. Under Persian rule, Babylon continued to be an important cultural and administrative center, but its political power had waned. The city eventually fell into decline, particularly after the Seleucid period, when it was eclipsed by new centers of power in the region. This city, once one of the greatest in the world, now lies in ruins in present-day Iraq. The Spartans. The history of Spartan civilization is a captivating tale of a society almost uniquely centered around military excellence and strict social order. Sparta, located in the region of Laconia in the southeastern Peloponnese, began as a small settlement in the Mycenaean era, running circa 1600 to 1100 BC. The Mycenaean civilization, known for its advanced architecture and complex societies, left behind ruins and artifacts that indicate a period of relative prosperity. However, the Dorian invasion around 1100 BC marked the end of the Mycenaean dominance and the beginning of what would eventually become the Spartan society. The Dorians, a Greek-speaking people from the north, settled in the region after subjugating the local populations. According to legend, the Heraclidae, descendants of Hercules, led this migration and established their rule over Laconia. This period saw the consolidation of Sparta from 4 villages into a single polis, or city-state, which later expanded its influence throughout the Peloponnese. The legendary figure Lycurgus is credited with establishing the foundations of Spartan society, although it is unclear whether he was a real person or a mythological character. The consensus amongst historians, while not universal, is that he is likely an amalgamation of several historical people into one mythical wise figure. The reforms of Lycurgus, known as the Great Retra, are said to have created the Spartan constitution, which organized the city-state around a militaristic and communal lifestyle. The focus was on creating disciplined warriors, with male citizens undergoing rigorous training from a young age in a unique system. This system emphasized endurance, strength, and loyalty to the state, which became the cornerstone of Spartan society. By the 7th century BC, Sparta had established itself as a dominant military power in Greece, largely due to its conquest of neighboring Messenia. The First and Second Messenian Wars resulted in the subjugation of the Messenians, who were turned into helots, or state-owned serfs, to work the land and support the Spartan economy. This period of expansion was marked by the establishment of a rigid social structure, with Spartiates at the top and helots at the very bottom. Notably, and this is often forgotten when discussing the Spartans, but the vast majority of the population were helots, whose services allowed the warrior class to flourish. Sparta's might reached its zenith during the Persian Wars in the 5th century BC, where it played a crucial role in defending Greece against the Persian Empire. The most famous Spartan contribution was at the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, where King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans made a legendary last stand against the vastly superior Persian forces. Although the battle was lost, it became a symbol of courage and sacrifice, solidifying Sparta's reputation as the leading military power in Greece. The Peloponnesian War, which ran from 431 to 404 BC and was fought between Sparta and its allies, and Athens and its allies, marked the height of Spartan power. Sparta emerged victorious after a protracted conflict, thanks in large part to its formidable army and significant financial support from Persia. However, the war left Greece as a whole weakened. Sparta's harsh treatment of its allies and former enemies led to widespread resentment, eventually culminating in the rise of Thebes and the decisive defeat of Sparta at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC. Notably, this is the battle where the sacred band of Thebes distinguished themselves, a topic that will surely be discussed later in this series. After its defeat at Leuctra, Sparta never regained its former glory. The city-state continued to exist, but it was overshadowed by other rising powers such as Macedonia under Philip II and Alexander the Great. During the Hellenistic period, Sparta became more isolated, and its once rigid social structure began to erode. In 146 BC, Sparta fell under Roman control, and unlike many other parts of Greece, Sparta was spared significant devastation. The Romans were interested in the martial traditions of the Spartans and preserved Sparta, colonial Williamsburg style, for reasons of tourism and general interest. Notably, while Sparta declined and fell, the Spartan way of life, with its emphasis on austerity, discipline, and responsibility, fascinated both contemporary Greeks and later Western thinkers. This fascination is so significant that Spartans have become ingrained in contemporary society, from high school sports team mascots to appearances in film and television. The Aztecs. The Aztecs, a Mesoamerican civilization, were a dominant force in central Mexico from the 14th century to 1521. The term Aztec is often used to describe the Mexica people of Tenochtitlan, though it can also refer more broadly to various Nahuatl-speaking groups in central Mexico. The term Aztec was not used contemporaneously and was proposed by the eminent German scientist Alexander von Humboldt in the early 19th century. Their civilization was characterized by a complex social, political, and religious structure, with Tenochtitlan, their capital city, serving as the epicenter of their empire. The origins of the Aztecs are traced back to the early 13th century, when the Nahua peoples, including the Mexica, migrated from what is now northern Mexico into the Valley of Mexico. This migration led them to the shores of Lake Texcoco, where they established the city of Tenochtitlan in 1325. The location of Tenochtitlan was determined by a prophecy which said that they would find an eagle perched on a cactus with a snake in its beak. If you're knowledgeable about flags, as I assume many of you are, this symbol should be familiar to you as the coat of arms appearing on the Mexican flag. Before establishing Tenochtitlan, the Mexica served as mercenaries for other city-states in the region. Their position as warriors for hire allowed them to gain valuable experience and recognition, setting the stage for their eventual rise to power. Despite starting on less fertile land, the strategic location of Tenochtitlan on an island in Lake Texcoco provided natural defenses and opportunities for agricultural innovation. The Mexica are thought to have invented or innovated upon a form of floating gardens, which supported a growing population around Lake Texcoco. In 1427, the Mexica of Tenochtitlan formed the Aztec Triple Alliance with two other city-states, Texcoco and Tlacopan. This alliance was initially a means of uniting forces to overthrow the city-state of Azcapotzalco, which had previously dominated the region. After their victory, Tenochtitlan emerged as the dominant partner in the alliance, effectively becoming the capital of the Aztec Empire. The Aztec Empire was not a centralized state, but rather a hegemonic empire that exerted control through a network of tributary city-states. These client states were allowed to retain their local rulers as long as they paid tribute and provided military support when required. This tribute system was crucial for maintaining the empire's wealth and power. The Aztecs used their military might to expand their territory, at one point extending their control from central Mexico to regions as far south as modern-day Guatemala. Aztec society was highly stratified, with a clear division between the nobility and commoners. The emperor held supreme authority and was considered semi-divine. The nobility controlled land and resources, while the commoners worked the land, served in the military, or participated in various public works. Religion played a central role in Aztec life, with the pantheon of gods being closely tied to natural elements and human activities. Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun, was particularly revered, and his worship involved large-scale human sacrifices, believed to ensure the sun's continued movement across the sky. It is, of course, impossible to talk about these sacrifices without discussing the highly unusual way the people sacrificed were captured. The Flower Wars were a unique type of ritualized warfare practiced by the Aztecs and their neighboring city-states primarily during the 15th and early 16th centuries. These wars were distinct from traditional conquests, as their primary purpose was not to capture territory or expand the empire, but to capture prisoners for religious sacrifices. The origin of flower wars is often linked to a series of natural disasters, including droughts and famines, that the Aztecs believed were signs of divine displeasure. The Aztec leadership sought to appease their gods, especially Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war, by ensuring a steady supply of sacrificial victims. The ritual nature of these conflicts also served as a means to train warriors and reinforce alliances between participating city-states. Combatants in flower wars were expected to engage in battle according to strict rules, with an emphasis on individual combat and the taking of captives. The captives taken during these wars were later sacrificed in elaborate public ceremonies, which the Aztecs believed would sustain the gods, and in turn, ensure the continuation of the world. These sacrifices, often involving prisoners of war, were conducted in grand ceremonies at the Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs also developed a sophisticated calendrical system that included both a 365-day solar calendar and a shorter ritual calendar. These calendars were used to time agricultural activities, religious ceremonies, and the planning of wars. Additionally, the Aztecs made significant advancements in art, architecture, and education, with codices being a primary method of recording history, religious practices, and daily life. The downfall of the Aztec Empire began with the arrival of Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés in 1519. Notably, by the time of his arrival, Cortés discovered Tenochtitlan to be a massive city, and though he didn't realize it, it was one of the largest cities in the world at the time. Cortés exploited existing tensions between the Aztecs and other indigenous groups, forming alliances with enemies of the Aztecs. After a series of battles and a devastating smallpox epidemic that weakened the indigenous population, the Spanish and their allies laid siege to Tenochtitlan in 1521. The siege culminated on August 13, 1521, with the fall of this impressively large city. Montezuma II, the Aztec emperor at the time of the Spanish arrival, was initially captured and later killed under unclear circumstances. His successors tried to resist the Spanish, but ultimately failed. The city was razed, and the Spanish established Mexico City on the ruins of Tenochtitlan, marking the end of the Aztec Empire and the beginning of Spanish colonial rule in Mexico. Notably, the Nahuatl language continues to be spoken by the Nahua people in Mexico until this day, with approximately 1.5% of the total population speaking the language. Remember to check out my main channel, Lazy Chill Zone, where I discuss unsolved mysteries and true crime topics. The link is in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed it. And if you didn't like it, feel free to hit that dislike button too. You know where it is. Also,